Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for taking the time to join us for today's webinar. I am Feiam, the editor of Power Retail, and I will be your moderator today. It is lovely to have everybody here. In this webinar, we will be joined by some of the industry's leading sustainability retailers and experts, the Purpose Agents, TWOOBS, and Go For Zero. Together, we will examine the changes in consumer behaviour surrounding sustainability practices and provide actionable insights that retailers can apply to their strategies in 2022 and beyond. Now, we have got plenty to get through this afternoon, but before we dive in, as always, I've got a little bit of housekeeping to get through first. We encourage questions throughout the webinar, so if you have any to ask, please feel free to pop them in the questions tab, which you will find located on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will do our best to answer them at the end of the session. I would also like to note that this webinar is being recorded and all attendees will receive a link to access the recording at any time. Now I would like to introduce our illustrious panel of speakers. First, we have Anna Forster, the co-founder and self-described Chief Sustainability Nerd at the Purpose Agents. We are also joined by Jess Dowden, the co-founder and CEO of TWOOBS, and Ellie de Grave, the founder and CEO of Go For Zero. Thank you for joining, guys. What a stellar lineup we have today. I'm so excited to chat with you. But that's enough chitter-chatter from me. I think we should get into the discussion. So I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not say that the changes in attitudes towards sustainability are happening. But it seems that retailers are a little late to the party. So today we're going to investigate how Australian consumers understand sustainable retailing and how sustainability influences purchase behaviour. We'll also dive into the actions that retailers can take for a more sustainable future. Throughout this webinar, we'll be presenting data from Power Retail switched on benchmarking and surveys, which are drawn from fortnightly survey data with a minimum of 1,000 respondents in each survey. Last month, Power Retail partnered with the Purpose Agents on a joint report, the Sustainability Spotlight, to drive awareness to the Australian retail industry, celebrating and rewarding best practice. So to explain a little bit more about the Spotlight itself, I'm going to pass it over to Anna Forster, who can share her insights into the report and the process behind the decision making. So please take it away, Anna.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Anna Forster. I'm the co-founder and chief sustainability nerd at the Purpose Agents. We are, just as a quick introduction, we call ourselves a chief sustainability officer in a box offering for retailers and for service providers who work with retailers. And we help design and implement sustainability strategies, broader ESG strategies, or help develop sustainable business models. We work with brands large and small, from startup to publicly listed company. And I'm actually with a background in retail. In a previous career, I was an executive in e-commerce, and I've seen the impact that the retail has on the environment and on people. So I've changed careers to help mobilize a more sustainable way of doing business. So one part of this is this great report we've created in partnership with Power Retail, the Spotlight, the Sustainability Spotlight. The overall goal was to create a document or an overview of all the exciting initiatives that are happening in the industry already, to celebrate and showcase those retailers that are doing the right thing by people and the planet, and to provide guidance to the industry. We then asked retailers to submit their sustainability work, and we've received some amazing submissions, sharing initiatives and strategies and progress to date. We then evaluated them based on a selection of criteria across social and environmental responsibility, but also on the impact that businesses can have on society at large. The Spotlight document then features those highlights from the different categories that have really stood out to us. For example, from our webinar guests, from Go For Zero and TWOOBS, but also from other brands like Feiam or Flora and Fauna. To find out who else has been featured, I think you'll have to download the report. We can't give everything away at this stage. But we really hope that the Spotlight can inspire other retailers and help accelerate the sustainability journey of the industry. And we're really looking forward to sharing more stories in the future.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Anna. As Anna said within the report, we are celebrating the leading retailers in sustainability, and we are lucky enough to have two of them here with us today. Now, Jess, I would like to find out a little bit more about the TWOOBS journey. So if you could just share with the audience how TWOOBS came about and what makes it a leader in sustainability.
Sure, thanks so much for having me. Hi, everyone. So my sister and I founded TWOOBS, by the way. The W is silent. We should have all discussed that before we hopped on. I'm so sorry. So it's called, and essentially it's a footwear brand, and we started it for a bunch of reasons in 2016 that it's funny when I go on these things because a lot of them no longer feel relevant now that we're in a climate crisis. But I guess we really loved shoes, and being vegan ourselves, we felt like everything that was out there was pretty mediocre for a vegan market. It was what you would traditionally think of as vegan. So like hemp, linen, a lot of brown and khaki, which as fashion lovers was just not that exciting or inspiring for us. But then, you know, a few years into our journey, similar to you, Anna, experiencing what the reality of the fashion industry actually looks like from the inside and seeing how much waste we were creating, we really weren't feeling good about what we were doing at work. And more there became this disconnect between our personal lives, where we were, you know, really climate focused and composting and doing all these things at home, and then arriving at work and creating shoes that, yes, were vegan, but essentially all that meant was that they were synthetic. And other than that, they were just like what everyone else was doing. So we were in this push and pull for a while, probably 18 months there, I would say, where we were really unhappy at work and kind of having this existential crisis of, should we even be doing this? Maybe we should quit our fashion jobs, close TWOOBS, and actually just go be climate activists somewhere where we're needed. And essentially what we decided to do was completely overhaul our product offering, deciding ultimately that people are always going to buy shoes. And if we can create a really amazing alternative for them that puts climate at the heart, then everyone in that equation would be much better off. And I'm really excited about what we've achieved. And I feel like we can go into more detail as we continue on in the questions.
Oh, absolutely. I can't wait to hear more about it. And look, I have had a look at the site, and I would be lying if I didn't say I wanted to buy every single pair of shoes there. So yeah, just got to maintain some self-control.
Yeah.
And now, Ellie, I'd like to chat with you about Go For Zero. So wanted to say that Go For Zero is also a leader in the sustainability movement, but I'd love to find out more about your journey in creating Go For Zero and the way that it, encourages circularity and sustainability. Sorry, you're on mute.
I just got that. Sorry. A bit similar to Jess for me, and I guess many businesses on here, it all starts from a personal journey. And for me, it was exactly the same. It was when my daughter was born. She was so sensitive to all these over-the-counter baby products. So when she kept bursting into rashes, I started to research what are actually the ingredients in the products that I started to use. And that was my first big aha moment. I was like, oh, I don't want this on my baby. I don't want this on me, actually. So I just started to research about the companies. I started to research about indeed and packaging, about waste, about their manufacturing practices. And that really lit a fire in my belly. At that time, I was working in international retail strategy. And we had planned to move to Australia, so we knew already there was another path for me out there. So when I moved here, I found myself really purchasing from so many different companies because I really wanted plastic-free products too that are also toxin-free, but that are also Aussie-owned. And then when I thought it was so hard and I paid so much in shipping, I decided to just launch a test store. And where I live in Calandra, I opened a pop-up store for 2 months. I got 50 brands in, and my goal was there to just find out if there's other people out there like me who really want sustainable products that are as well toxin-free, as well sustainable, and also founded by Aussies. And I learned so much in that store. So it took me 8 months to go back, find all the products that I love from anything that I use daily in my home. And then I launched Go For Zero. And the goal was really to have a store that ticks all the boxes that I couldn't find. So I wanted it to be good for people and planet, but I also wanted to give back to the communities. I wanted to see that the products that the founders, that they also donate to the communities, so that there's just more to it than just waste-free and toxin-free. I really wanted products that are good over easy, I would say. So then today, we're 3.5 years in. We've got about 2,000 products now, and our warehouse is almost, or like 99% waste-free, I would say. So every single day we still evaluate, is there anything else that we can do? And it just became a real mindset, not just in the products, but just as a business owner too. Like, okay, what is still in our bin? Every week we take a picture, and then we look at that, and we make sure that we make changes and reduce as much as we can.
I love to hear it. It's a fantastic story. So kudos to you guys, absolutely. Now I'm going to jump into some data. So we asked online shoppers to select the 3 most important sustainability or ethical practices from retailers. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the overwhelming majority of consumers, so 66%, agree or strongly agree that the retail industry creates too much waste. Shocker. It is important as retailers to ask yourselves if you are contributing to this perception or if you are trying to do something about it. So how does this impact shopper behaviour? They generally aren't considering the life cycle of a product and its packaging prior to purchase. It's actually only 29%, and they aren't actively shopping for items that can be recycled or that are made from recycled materials. In fact, only 22% do this. So Anna, does this data surprise you? And also, what can retailers do to make sure that they are reducing waste and encouraging circularity?
No, this doesn't surprise me. It's the waste topic or packaging topic. They're both quite tangible topics, and they've been pretty much on people's minds, especially the topic of plastic waste and ocean plastic and all of that is always top of mind in Australia, being surrounded by oceans. And it's good that retailers are being put, in the responsibility to do something about it. It's a key sustainability topic. It's not only from that pollution perspective, making sure that nothing gets out into the ecosystems, but also, as you mentioned, it's also a circularity topic, and circularity is closely linked to emissions as well, right? So if you're wasting any kind of resources, you're not only wasting those resources, you're also producing unnecessary emissions when you have to make new of these resources, and that can be packaging, that can be making a product. A lot of the emissions caused sit in making the materials and producing things, may that be plastic film or packaging or the actual product, which is why circularity is so important to really get also to our emissions reductions targets as a country and for industries. Yes, yeah. And then there's also shipping. That's another topic of waste. If we're talking about waste, right, we also need to think about, do we actually need to ship things very fast, or are we actually wasting resources? Do customers actually want something today, or do they just want to know when they can get it? And are we wasting precious resources of energy and fuel to get things to customers faster? There's so many topics of waste that sit in retail that retailers really need to address.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we should pass it over to some retailers that are smashing it in terms of reducing waste. Go For Zero, for one. You guys are all about going plastic free. In fact, it is a part of your ethos. So how does your business reduce waste and encourage circularity in its everyday practices?
Yeah, I would say with this, it is just, I think, a mindset as a business that in everything that we do, sustainability is calculated in. So whenever we want to launch a new product, the first thing we look at is how much single use does it replace and what's the end of its life. If it's just a bar, a sew bar, okay, we know there's nothing that is left at the end. It comes in a cardboard box. It's uncompostable and recyclable. So that ticks all our boxes. So we have some boxes that we tick with everything that we do, and it just becomes a part of a decision-making process. And I would say we've also had a journey in that even though our boxes have always been printed in Australia, we always use plastic-free tape. Something that we didn't realize at the start was the shipping labels. I never really thought about it. So once I found out that shipping labels can be composted, I just looked into home compostable shipping labels, and that took us actually quite a while. It took us a year. Now they're way more accessible, but they weren't at the start. And we even the roll that it comes in, we roll it back up because that part we can send back to. So there's some extra effort to it. But if that's what you want to do and you really want to do good, you make it part of what you do every single day. And I think that goes through from packing to picking orders as an online store too. We've never had any paper. Everything's on iPads. So it goes from, you know, the warehouse through to the office. I can't even remember the last time I printed on paper, you know, like it's just part of not doing that anymore. And it's creating a new habit, and habits take time, and that's normal. So I think everyone who wants to start, just I think pick something and be proud, and then try another thing and create it as a habit. And once you're on a roll, you'll love it. It's great.
I think something you said kind of just stuck with me. You said that you want to do it. I think that it's important that retailers actually want to make a difference or a change rather than feel like they have to. So yeah, and I love the idea of picking something small and just going from there. So Jess, I'd like to ask you the same question. So TWOOBS is all about crafting shoes from recycled material, and I'd love to know more about that. But I'd also want to know how your business encourages circularity as well, and also how it reduces waste.
Yeah, so it's funny, like similar to Ellie, it sounds like you're asking a lot of questions, and that is like a big pillar in the way that we do business. We always want to be asking what, and more importantly, why. And if the answer is because it's always been done that way, that is our least favorite answer and the first sign that it's got to go. In the first shipment that we brought in from China, I remember we just didn't specify how we wanted the shoes to be packaged. You know, like, oh, they'll come and they'll probably arrive in boxes, and then they arrived in individual poly bags. And that was like the hugest learning for us. Straight away, it was like, okay, well, we ordered, I don't remember how many, maybe 2,500 pairs of shoes for our first run, and that's 2,500 plastic bags that we could have avoided. And so constantly in our business, it feels like things like that are happening where we didn't think about them, and then it created waste accidentally. And on the one hand, that's bad, but on the other hand, when things like that happen, you're going to make sure that they definitely never happen again. So going from that initial order where everything came in a poly bag, now we're probably on the opposite end of the spectrum, where a couple of seasons ago we went satchel free. So lots of retailers, you guys all would have seen, are bringing in the compostable satchels, which I think really are just a band-aid problem. So the question that we asked is, why do satchels even exist? Shoes come in boxes, why can't they just be shipped in the same boxes that they come in, which is what we do now, and it kind of folds in on itself, and we seal it up with you know, some great plastic-free tape. So that's one way that where our packaging is really, really reduced, and I am pretty dogmatic about what I will let into our packaging. So my sister does the marketing and I do the product and sustainability. So for example, when we're launching a collaboration, she wants to put a flyer in there all about the collaboration with like a QR code where you can learn more. And I say, absolutely not. Why would we put a flyer in there if we don't need to? Can you just send out an EDM to anyone who's bought it and tell them the information over email? We do make our shoes from recycled materials. So that's great because I guess, you know, other retailers are overproducing. So why not repurpose some of the stuff that they're making? But then a really big part of it for us is producing less. And I know that that's a really unpopular thing to say to retailers, but we're all producing way too much stuff. And I remember when I first started working in fashion, they told me that we could, you know, expect to sell between 60 and 70% of our stock, and that was just the way things go, and we'd have to figure out what to do with the last 40 to 30%, and I just don't think that that's at all good enough. So we are playing at the moment with a pre-order model where it gives us a really good gauge on what people want, and then we can produce from that. And then also we do have a recycle program where we take back the shoes at the end of their life and we repurpose them into things. I would love to be able to repurpose them into shoes. That's, you know, I'm proud of our recycle program because no one else is doing great things, but I want to be prouder. So I think that where we're going with our recycle program is much more exciting than where we are right now, because right now we just mush the shoes up and make them into, you know, warehousing mats or playground mats, which is great, but we can all be doing that and we should all be doing that. And then from there, I'd really love us to see, I'd love to see us doing something more innovative, like making a new product with our old shoes or making shoes with our old shoes, hopefully, eventually.
Yeah, it's incredible. I love your tenacity about it as well. So I'm excited to see what's next for you guys and how you're going to continue on with the journey. So fantastic work. Now, it's fair to say that more people are now being influenced by sustainable practices than ever before. And according to Power Retail data, in 2020 and in 2021, half of all survey respondents said their purchases were not influenced by a retailer's sustainability or ethical practices. But in 2022, this has dropped to 40%, meaning that the majority, which is 60%, have had their purchase of behaviour influenced by a retailer's sustainability or ethical practices. So Anna, do you expect this figure to increase year on year? And what steps can retailers take to educate shoppers about sustainability and its importance?
Yeah, I think we're going to keep seeing that trend progress. There's obviously rising eco and social consciousness around the world. There's more and more movements popping up around different topics, you know, starting with Me Too, Black Lives Matter, different topics that just matter to people. People are becoming louder, sustainability and environmental topics as well. And there people are becoming more wary of greenwashing as well. And the knowledge about sustainability is becoming more nuanced, right? So again, it used to be just plastic waste, ocean plastic. Now polls have shown that people also are starting to understand greenhouse gas emissions, carbon emissions, and they worry about the connection to climate change that it's causing. And Gen Z and Gen Y are most aware and concerned about that. And they're, you know, now spending 40%, they're commanding 40% of all the spending. So that awareness is just rising. And now we've also had all of this extreme weather in Australia. You know, we've had the drought and the fires, and now we've had a year of rain and floods. And I think globally, and it's not only in Australia, so I think globally humanity is waking up to the fact that we're really destroying our planet. So there's change, and people understand that business has a responsibility and a capability to drive change. So they're expecting action, so that it will most definitely only go up. That your chart,
Yeah, there's another piece of data in here that I found quite interesting, and I'd like to chat with you briefly about it. So only 8% of the respondents said that they were influenced by a retailer's carbon neutrality, and only 6% said that they were interested in the carbon offset practices. So why do you think that there are fewer shoppers that expect retailers to offset carbon emissions, and what can retailers do about it?
So going back to the what I just stated, so people do understand carbon emissions and climate change connection, but what they do not understand very well yet, which your data shows as well, is the fact that shopping also influences carbon emissions, right? So the emissions impact, the making new products. You know, 50% of carbon emissions of a product sit in raw materials and producing it, right? Example of a piece of clothing or whatever. And then there's also transport, another 20%. So it's all lying, 90% lies in the supply chains and also using it. So there's a big emissions impact from consumption. And but obviously recyclable packaging, that's more tangible. So there's just education needed around these topics. But climate is definitely top of mind with people. We've also seen that now with polls ahead of the election. We've seen the results of the election, but we need to close the gap of really making people understand when I consume something, I'm causing an emissions impact, and retailers and myself have a responsibility to reduce it, to mitigate it, and retailers as well, right? So offsetting is also not enough. Reduction is where we need to go. So
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we also asked online shoppers how likely they are to recommend a retailer because of its sustainability or ethical practices. So the vast majority, 69%, are likely or highly likely to recommend a retailer because of its sustainability or ethical practices. And this figure is up year on year from 67% last year. But what's interesting is that despite the number of shoppers saying that they would recommend a retailer based on its practices, there has also been a 2% increase in those saying that they are highly unlikely to do so. So Anna, I'm going to ask you again, why do you think this is and what can retailers do about it?
I do think that I think that's going to shift along with the further awareness around sustainability and the growing awareness of people wanting change and action from retailers. Like I said, so there's Gen Z really cares about the topic. Then now 40% of the money spent comes from them. So I think just continuously doing the work, sharing the stories, taking customers on the journey, being open and honest and vulnerable is going to pay off in brand equity in the long term. So I think we're just going to see these stats improving.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. Now we are actually getting a little bit short on time, so I'm going to skip over to the next data set that we have. And I want to have a look at the price of sustainability. So we know that sustainability is important, there is no doubt about it, but is it something that shoppers are willing to pay more for? So the majority, 62%, say that it is yes, and this is a figure that has remained essentially unchanged year on year. This means that when strategizing for sustainability, you can factor in this kind of pricing rather than taking a hit. So shoppers are becoming more aware, and we do know that fast fashion and cheap products come with an environmental or ethical price to pay. The flip side is that they also understand the value that sustainable products are more expensive. Anna, do you generally agree with this sentiment?
I have also, there was another study last year that had similar results, and that broke it down. So also a result that said 60% of people will pay more and broke it down into even price brackets, and 14% will pay up to 10% more, 5% up to 20% more, and another 5% up to 30% more. So there is, again, an upward trend, and people are understanding that the price of doing ethical and environmentally responsible business will possibly increase the pricing a little bit. That being said, it needs to be an overall balance, you know, that there's cost savings with sustainable actions that retailers can reap. So it just all needs to go into the calculation of the price. You know, it can't all be shifted to the customer because there's also cost savings. So in the end, it's meant to be, you know, brands need to look at the big picture of how they can achieve pricing that, you know, is still makes it still the product still available for the customers, but still achieves better social and environmental performance.
Absolutely. Now we've had obviously some amazing data to back up the ever increasing interest and the need for sustainability in retail, but we all know that the road to sustainability is not always a smooth one. Ellie and Jess, what challenges have your businesses experienced and how did you overcome them? I'm going to start with Ellie. Small question.
I would say, but I'll pick one or two maybe. I think the main one, and it relates a bit to what Anna says, I think educating the consumers on why the product, if it is more expensive, why it is more expensive, what it does, why it's better for you, why it's better for the environment, and the long-term effect from it. For example, if you think about reusable baking mats, so they would replace about 2,000 single-use baking sheets. So obviously to buy these mats, it is more expensive, but if you calculate it over the long term, it is actually not, and you're doing something good for the planet. So I think for us, the most important thing, and it's something that became one of our strengths, is also educate every single day on social media. We try to explain things, not just about our products, but also about recycling, why it's important, that recycling is actually not the solution because only 13% gets recycled. So, you know, every time you put something in there, try to think what you can reduce. So I think the education part for the consumers has been absolutely crucial for us. And that's something that I learned throughout the journey, because I think at the start, some products didn't go and I couldn't understand why, because I thought they were amazing, obviously. And then, like, if you think about skincare, some natural skincare is more expensive, but it has no fillers in it. So it has no cheap products added. So you need less, so it will last you longer. So I think it's really, I think that was our main challenge, and something that we now like really doubled down on, really do a lot.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, obviously the takeaway from this entire webinar is education is a really important thing for all retailers to put out there. Jess, I'm going to ask you the same question about the challenges that your business has faced and how you have overcome them.
So lots of challenges every day. Every time I open my inbox, a new challenge, like I'm sure probably everybody here. Something that's been a really big, hairy, ugly challenge for us that we're kind of like still figuring out, which I'm more than happy to share, is when we did decide that we wanted to go on this sustainability journey, a really big element for me needed to be around addressing overconsumption. I don't think that, sure, if you're just, you know, if we just wanted to be a retailer on the periphery of climate and sustainability, maybe I wouldn't feel that this is so important, but we really stand by our stance around climate and sustainability, and it's like the beating heart of our business. And so I felt like we couldn't continue to encourage people to just buy more, they need more, they need more. You know, the average American consumer buys 8 pairs of shoes per year. Why do they need 8 pairs of shoes per year? It doesn't matter if we're making it out of fairy dust or, you know, unicorn poo. No matter what we're making our shoes out of, if they continue to buy 8 pairs, it's not sustainable. There are too many of us buying too much stuff. So then a big part of our brand messaging needed to be, please shop responsibly or buy less. And what was really interesting is that people started to listen, which I was really excited about. And our COO was like, oh, what are you doing to all of our customers? Like, these people used to come and buy 5 pairs of shoes from us over the summer period, and now they're only buying 1. Like, this is impossible for a business. And, you know, I guess with our, you know, old retailer cap on, you could be like, okay, well, that messaging's got to go. This doesn't work as a business. But like I mentioned before, we're all about asking questions. And so, you know, how else can we solve that problem? So the solution that we came up with was, you know, well, someone doesn't need to buy 8 pairs of sandals. So what else can we give them? Like, while they're here and buying 1 pair of sandals for them, what else can they buy? So we increased our size range, and now we're gender neutral. So, you know, people that identify as whatever gender can shop from us, which is great. We're about to launch kids. So then, like, while you're shopping on our site, you're buying shoes for you, maybe you're buying them for your partner. Now you're also buying one for your kid. All of you guys need 1 pair of shoes for summer. So it's like taking these challenges that feel ginormous, that we thought we had answers to previously, but turning them on their head. So coming up with a solution like that works for us as a business, but also works for the environment is like a really important thing in our business, and like something that I think will probably be a forever challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I could feel all of the retailers in the audience just kind of do this when you said tell them to shop responsibly. I know that they're all like, no, keep buying. But it's a really important thing to take note of. And I do know on your website you do say shop responsibly. So I love that it's front and center. Definitely make it well known. Now we are running out of time, and I wanted to thank everybody for joining us. We have quite a few questions from our audience today, and so I wanted to start directing them to our incredible speakers. Now, Ellie, you've already given us a piece of advice, so I was going to ask both Anna and Jess, what is one piece of advice you would give retailers who want to overhaul their sustainability practices but may not have the budget? So I'm going to start with Anna.
That's always a bit of a tricky question, right? So it's I think it's a budget, right? So sustainability is a strategic topic, right? So it's risk management, it's jumping on opportunities to dive into to access different customer groups, to reduce cost. So it's when you think about your strategy of how you want to perform as a business in 10 years, if you still want to be there in 10 years, you need to address sustainability. So, and then you need to shift your mindset from cost to investment, right? So there's an investment into changing your operations, into changing your supply chain, into decarbonizing, into changing to green energy providers, which is also which can be a cost saving in many ways, reducing energy needs. So it's about thinking, how can I invest in this? And then it's just a longer horizon of thinking about it. And there's no really quick low-hanging fruits, unfortunately, in sustainability. There's transformation needed. And I think there was also another question that I just want to quickly tack on that. That was the question on how can retailers balance profitability with sustainability, which it's kind of that similar. How can I, it's about thinking, how can not acting on changing impact my profitability in the future? How can I set the business up for success? And just imagine we might be getting a carbon price at some point. So we don't actually, there's no price on the inputs from nature. Using the sky to offload our emissions, and every ton of carbon emitted raises the temperature, but we don't pay for that. So if you have a carbon price, that will drive up the cost in your supply chain, that will impact your profitability. So you better help reduce with your suppliers their emissions, like help them switch to green energy, because then your prices for the resources may not go up, which may not affect your profitability. So it's about shifting your idea. It's like, it's not cost, it's an investment for you to be active as a brand in the future.
I like that. It's an investment, and yes, I completely agree. Jess, do you have a piece of advice that you would also give retailers who would like to overhaul their sustainability practices but may not have the budget?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, I definitely agree with a lot of what Anna said, but then like also in practice, I'd love to challenge that idea that it is so expensive, because in our experience, we're definitely like still in startup phase. We are very, like, we run a lean ship, right? And I remember initially, before we started on our sustainability journey, I thought that there was just some, magical person that could come and give me, like, show me where the lock was and hand me the key to unlock what does sustainable fashion look like, and how can I, take all the right steps to do all the right things. And I think that that's such a misconception that a lot of people have. And like, I would say sustainable fashion is probably an oxymoron right now. And so like, to really look at something simple in your business and start there. Like, something for us was like our materials. It was just like, right, we're using virgin synthetic materials. What recyclable options are there out there for us right now? And then starting to look at that, you know, running a business is really expensive. And I think that running an environmentally focused business hasn't been that much more expensive for us. And on the flip side, it means that our customers genuinely get behind us every step of the way. So like previously, when someone might get a pair of shoes and be like, great, I love these, they're comfortable, I'll put them on my feet and wear them outside. They arrive and they look at them and they're like, wow, these are made from recycled materials. Wow, they're carbon neutral. And then they like get their phone out and they put them on in their Instagram stories and they're like, guys, these shoes are amazing for all these reasons. So now we have these little brand ambassadors who just encourage everyone to buy our shoes. So in that way, that's free marketing. Ain't nothing expensive about that. So like, yes, some things are more expensive, but then it's interesting because I think like we're definitely coming out, like I would say, net positive.
Amazing, amazing. And yeah, I can attest to when I buy something that's more sustainable or eco-friendly or anything like that, I feel like a better person myself. So I can imagine when someone gets your sandals, they feel like they've just done something great for the planet. So absolutely. And Ellie, I would like to ask you as well, what is one piece of advice that you would also give retailers?
My advice would really be, you don't have to do it all at once. Like if you pick one thing and go with it and communicate it to your customers, also maybe why you haven't done it yet. It could have been a budget thing and so on, but if you pick one thing, for example, we're opening now a store with a warehouse. I don't really have budget for nice furniture, so every single piece is right now upcycled. It's all from marketplace. It takes a bit more time, but it's so much cheaper. So there's absolutely ways out there to be sustainable, because we're using furniture, but then also not to have the cost that goes with it. So it's a bit also, it's about innovation and being creative, and there's so many ways to reduce your cost. We haven't bought paper because we don't print in the warehouse, so that's also no cost. So I think there's a few things that if you do the swap, that you really can reduce costs rather than have more of it. Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. I love looking through like Facebook Marketplace and finding some gems that, you know, you don't have to shop from a fast furniture retailer or something like that. There's so many options that people should be aware of. So absolutely agree. Now we only have a few more minutes, but I would like to ask everybody a few more questions. So we've had a question from Indy. I have a question on customers saying that they will pay more for sustainability. Easy to say in a survey, but have Jess and Ellie and Anna experienced this in practicality? So I'm going to start with you, Ellie. What do you think?
Yeah, yes, I agree. We made Australian-made T-shirts. We went through the whole process. Everyone really wanted it. And then we had them and they were there, and a lot of people told us they were too expensive. So again, the education part was so important for us to say, like, so someone in Australia made it, so that's so much per hour that they received, and the printing is so much. And then, so I do absolutely agree. I think people say they want it, but there's still a big gap between wanting it and really doing it. And it all goes back to the education part for me again, and really explaining, well, yes, it's more expensive, but that's why it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jess, what about you?
Yeah, definitely. We have a fairly price sensitive customer. We actually used to produce shoes for $59 and $79. Our like major thing was that we wanted to make vegan fashion accessible until we realized that that meant that it was really bad for the environment, and now we don't do that anymore. But we still try to make our shoes accessible, just not at that price point, so that they can also be good quality and last. But I think it's a lot about communication, like what Ellie said. And, you know, I've seen a couple of great retailers based in Australia. There was Sounds Beast and Bed Threads recently. They both sent out an email communicating price rises. And that's something that we're actually, unfortunately, going to have to do with inflation and just how crazy even freight is at the moment. But just being completely transparent about it and communicating, like, our prices have increased and this is what's happening and these are the realities of running a business. And people are really understanding when you treat them like people. And I think that that's a really important thing that we are always trying to explain to our customers, like, we're just people on the other end of this email, and we're just out here trying to make it work and trying to make better choices. And then they're pretty understanding, and if they can't afford it, they'll communicate that to us too. And what we'll try to explain to them is, well, you know, there's a mentality shift around that. Maybe you can't afford to buy 3 pairs like you wanted to, but you could save up and buy 1 pair instead, and you can cherish that pair and treat it really well, and it will last you a lot longer. So I just think that open communication about all the layers is really important with price.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've done quite a few webinars, and the ongoing theme with all of them is that transparency is key, that customers are people, they are not stupid, and they just want to know what's going on so they don't feel like they're in the dark. So if there are things like price increases, or if shipping is taking too long, or if something doesn't quite go to plan, it's better that they know up front, and they're not left angry, because that's the last thing you want. Now, we are actually running out of time, and we have received so many questions, so I'm really sorry, but we won't be able to get to answer all of them. But I would like to give our speakers a big thank you for the time they've taken to be part of this webinar today. This has been actually one of the best webinars that I've held, aside from my dog barking the whole time, so I'm really sorry about that. But I'm really thankful for everybody to be here today. If you would like to find out more about the Sustainability Spotlight report, it will be sent to all attendees that joined us today. And if you would like your business to be featured in the next Sustainability Spotlight report, we do encourage all retailers to submit their nominations online. I would like to thank Anna, Ellie and Jess for their time today, and a massive shout out to all of the audience that have joined us this afternoon. Well, that's all from me. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your week, and we'll see you all later. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Also, any questions remain unanswered, happy to be contacted via LinkedIn, or I'm sure the other ladies as well. If we can be of any help to anyone out there, we'd love to.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Ellie. Bye.